Hi everyone, welcome back to Economics A-Level here on YouTube. This is part 2 of 4 videos on evaluation, and this part is going to look at basic evaluative techniques. At the end of part 1, the last video on evaluation, we introduced the basic evaluative techniques. These are talking about short-run versus long-run issues, matters such as opportunity cost and the magnitude or scale of the change, the extent to which something will or will not happen, and the it depends on rule. So does the outcome depend on something else holding constant or something else happening? So we're going to go and look at each of those in turn, and these are the basic evaluative techniques to doing good evaluation in A-level economics. Turning to our first basic evaluative technique then in A-level economics, and that's looking at the short-run impacts of a policy or decision or change versus the long-run impacts of that decision or policy. So you can see on the screen that we look first at the short-run impacts of increased government spending from borrowing, and then the long-run impacts of that. So you can see that the argument, first of all, is that in the short run, that increased borrowing might not harm consumers in the economy because those borrowed funds could go into public works projects that create jobs. And if it's those consumers who benefit from increased employment, they can then gain larger disposable incomes and therefore benefit from that policy in the short run. However, we then look at the long run and look at future generations, and we argue that they could be saddled with paying off that debt and the interest that goes with that. And we're calling this an example of intergenerational inequity, an important concept to talk about in essays. So you can see then that this basic evaluative technique does the job it's supposed to do. It's contrasting short-run impacts with long-run impacts and allowing you to evaluate and think at an interconnected level at the same time. This is a technique not to be ignored. Discussing the opportunity cost of a policy or decision is a very good basic evaluative technique to employ in essays. For example, on the screen at the moment, it says that, however, increasing spending on subsidies to firms generating renewable energy, which is the argument being made in the essay if the rest of it was here, as part of a scheme to reduce negative externalities of pollution from non-renewables may result in an opportunity cost. So here we are showing that we're identifying, because we're saying that there's an opportunity cost involved with this policy, and then we go on to state what it is, the opportunity cost, whereby there is less to spend on the education budget, reducing educational attainment into the future. That's only a possibility. There could be thousands more opportunity costs of that policy, but you just need to pick one or two, explain them, explain why, and then move on. The word magnitude simply means the scale or degree to which something's going to happen. And this, again, is another nice basic evaluative technique to use in your work. The example given here is that the preceding analysis would have talked about government increasing taxes to reduce the budget deficit. And presumably it would have talked about VAT, because our evaluation now goes on to look at VAT. But what it does is it questions how big this rise was. What was the magnitude of the change? The argument made here is that if the change was only small, for example a 0.25% rise on VAT, then this would only generate a small amount of extra governmental revenue, and that would limit therefore the impact of the reduction of the budget deficit, which was the intention of the government according to the preceding analysis. So there you can see how the scale or degree of change is a good evaluative technique to use. Questioning the extent to which something is going to happen is also a key basic evaluative skill to learn. In the example on the screen, we're discussing extending property rights as a solution to negative externalities. We're explaining that it allows the owners of land to sue polluting companies and parties to enforce their rights to enjoyable ownership over that land, i.e. making the polluter pay compensation in order to get that externality internalised. However, we're questioning the extent to which the externality will be internalised if the compensation is less than what it's going to cost the polluting company to clean up their act, i.e. to put environmental safeguards in place, to put clean disposal of waste methods in place. So there you can see how we question the extent to which something is true in economics. In the first of my 4 evaluation videos, we looked a little bit at the it depends on rule, but we'll just do it in a little bit more depth here. So it depends on just means that we're going to change a variable. So this is where we play around with ceteris paribus in a more overt sense. So let's assume the premise is, or the analysis that preceded this, is that increased growth is going to lead to higher inflation. The evaluation is going to say that it depends on a number of other factors. In our first example here, one of the other factors is where we are in the economic cycle. If we're in a downturn or a recession characterized by high levels of unemployment, the AD curve normally intersects the LRAS curve on the horizontal part. How far down that horizontal part towards the y-axis we are depends on how deep that recession is. If there is increased GDP during that downturn, i.e. the start of a recovery, this might not impact upon inflation. We might just move along the flat bit of the LRAS with no inflationary trade-off. Similarly, we've also said that if we are just approaching the inflationary trade-off zone, then this might just be a minimal inflationary rise and not a large one. So again, we're looking at it depends on where we are. We're also questioned in that the magnitude of change as well. Our second example is also saying that it depends on the type of growth that's occurring. Obviously, there's demand-side-led growth and supply-side-led growth. The premise of the analysis is that it's going to be demand-led growth that causes the higher inflation, but in your evaluation, you just say, well, it depends on the type of growth, and if it's supply-side-led growth, assuming that the shift out in LRAS is greater than the shift out in AD, then this could ease inflationary pressures, not cause them to rise. So then again, we can see what the it depends on rule means and how it works. An important point to bear in mind, as with analysis, is that graphs and diagrams should be used to further enhance the analysis and evaluation of your essay. So you can see in this example there was a graph used, and you should try and use those as often as possible to deepen the level of evaluation and the level of analysis that you're undertaking. Let's summarise some of the basics of evaluation. The most important thing to know is that it's founded upon good analysis skills. So go back and watch the video on analysis if you want to deepen your understanding of that. Again, as with analysis, this is going to take time and effort, and you have to learn how to be logical, working from start to finish. Use the basic evaluative techniques and signal that you're going to evaluate. Signal with the words that you're going to use, and signal by starting a new paragraph. Play around with ceteris paribus. That's the whole fun of evaluation, that you get to change all of the assumptions and all of the constants that you've had on hold. Question the assumptions underpinning economic models and the way economic thinkers think. Talk about things like conflicts of policies as well. And don't forget, always answer the question directly. If you don't do that, it's not going to be very good evaluation or analysis that you're doing. In our next video, we're going to look at evaluation that gets an A grade in exams. So we'll look at some more advanced techniques that you could be using to evaluate. If you want to go to that, click in the top right hand corner now. If not, don't forget to like and subscribe and write in the comment section about videos that you wish to see made in order to help your learning. See you next time. Thanks for watching.